welcome to Data Science Works, and today I'm going to start a new series for you all, that is Statistics for Data Science. So let's get started with me into this series, and today we are going to discuss a very important topic, that is the basics of statistics that you all should know before getting started with this series. So let's get started. So I'm going to share my screen now. So basics of statistics for data science. Next is what we're going to discuss today is first one is the population and your sample in statistics. So it is very important that you know these terms, like what do you mean by population, what is sample, right? What is a statistic, right? Sampling in statistics, how do you sample? Then parameter versus statistics. So this is one of the important, people ask you in interviews also, so how do you define, a parameter, how you define statistics? So we are going to cover that. Next is the sampling distribution, and finally the sampling error. So these 5 points are the basics that we need before we get started into the actual statistics. So let's start with the population. So according to Wikipedia, I found out like a population is basically a set of similar items here, or you can say events which is of interest of some question or experiment. So this definition is confusing, so let's understand in data terminology. That is, we can say basically it is an entire data set from which we'll be drawing the data for your statistical analysis. For example, you're working in a multinational company, and then population is the set of all people. Okay, so the set of all the people that are working, so population is that in that terminology. Next, what is sample? So sample, you all know in basic English, right? So now from this whole population, I'm going to select a subset of people working in HR department from all the employees. So population is basically your set of all employees, and now from this I'm selecting a subset, which is the HR department employees. So now this will be a sample. So as you can see on the screen, so this was your entire population, and I have selected the HR department employees. So this is a sample. Next is, how do you sample it? How do you sample in statistics, right? So it is simple, like you want to select a subset of data from the population, so it is known as sampling, right? It's very simple. Sampling simply means selecting a subset of data from the population. So some of the ways, like how do you sample actually? So first one is random sampling. In random sampling, we are selecting randomly. Okay, we are randomly selecting some data points from it. Next is cluster sampling. So in this, for example, we are selecting the group randomly. In cluster sampling, we have different subgroups, and each subgroup has similar characteristics, but instead of selecting item from a particular subgroup, we are selecting the entire subgroup in cluster sampling, right? So I hope I made it clear. Next is what's difference between a parameter and a statistic. So parameter is basically, so by now you already know, what I'm trying to do here is you have a population and you have a sample. So two things you have. So sample is basically a subset. Now parameter is a numerical value that represents your entire population. So parameter is associated with your population. Now statistics is a numerical value that represents your sample. So for sample, I'll go to statistic. For parameter, I'll go to population. So example I have already mentioned, for example, population mean you are finding, right? So you have a population, you are finding the mean, so it will be a parameter. Now sample mean is you selected a subset of data, then calculated the mean, so now it's your sample mean, right? So sample mean will be your statistic, and population mean will be your parameter. So this is one of the questions people ask you in interviews regarding statistical data analysis, to check how you know about your parameters, your populations, and your sampling techniques. So I hope it's clear now. Next is the sampling distribution. So sampling distribution name is, suggesting it is a probability distribution of a given a random sample based statistics. So the probability distribution of a random sample based statistics is your sampling distribution. Now, we have understood it by the definition, but I want to make it clear with the help of an example. So I have developed example for you. So suppose we have a population P, that means the total set of observations. Okay, so you have a population P, a total set of observations means you have 500, observations. Now we draw all the possible samples of size, say 5. So I have 500 observations, and now I'm saying, okay, let me draw all the possible sample sizes of, say, 5 observations from this population. So I pick first 5, then I pick the next 5, then some other 5, and so on. Then I'm calculating a statistic. Statistic can be your mean or your variance for each sample. So what I did, for example, I have 500 observations. I selected 5 observations, then I calculated their mean. Next, selected again 5 samples, then calculated their mean. Again 5 samples, calculate. So you can plot these means. So you're drawing the samples, you're calculating a statistic. Statistic is associated with, I told you in the earlier slide, it is associated with your sample. So we can plot, say, means on the graph. Okay, so you're calculating the means and now you're plotting it on the graph. So it will be a histogram, which gives you an idea for the distribution. So how your data is going to be distributed, how your data is distributed, to know more about your data, right? So it can be normally distributed, it can be uniformly distributed. So multiple distributions we have. So I'm going to discuss, the normal distributions in the next coming videos. But to have a better understanding, so what you have to do is, so the probability distribution of the statistic. Okay, so what you did, you calculated, you observed some samples, you calculated their statistics, your mean, and you plotted. Now you got the idea. Okay, so it is following some normal distribution, or say it is following some uniform distribution. So the probability distribution, okay, of the statistic, and what the statistic we are going here is mean, is going to be a sampling distribution. So name, according to name, it's it's everything clear with the help of this example. Next is sampling distribution of mean. The same, what we are going to calculate the mean of every sample group. Okay, 5 or 10 samples you are calculating, or taking out, and then calculating the mean, and now you're going to plot these to see how your data is going to be distributed. Now, the final slide and the final prerequisites for starting into these series is your sampling error. So you all know, okay, you have a large set of populations, say 500 or 1,000 observations or more than that, right, in real cases, and your sample size is very small as compared to your population size. Your population size is, say, 10,000, you're selecting only say 50 or 100 samples out of it, right? So since the sample is not including all the members of a population, right, it is not including, so statistics of the sample. Now when you calculate, when you take out the sample and calculate the statistic, so it is normal that the statistics of the sample will be generally differing from the statistics of the entire population, right? Because it is not including all the members, so it will be differing. So the difference, so we are saying the difference between the sample statistics and your population is considered as the sampling error. So that's about it. So we understood, what's the population? Population is your set of all the items, right? All your events, you can say, or items. And sample is, we are collecting a subset from them, like say 5 samples, 10 samples. Okay, we calculating some mean or some variance. So what it's called? It's called statistic. And for population, it is called, what it is called? It is called parameter. So, and the difference between, because it will not be including all the members of the population, so it is obvious that the statistics of the sample generally will be differing from the statistics of your entire population, and the difference is called your sampling error. So this was a summary of the basic statistics terms that you should know before getting started with me into this series. So thank you all, and this was about today.